Hi, I'm Peter J. Ray. Welcome. Today's topic is the 1871 Cleveland Forest City NA baseball season. So the Cleveland Forest City baseball team, this was their third season, and they joined the new National Association of Professional Baseball Players, also known as just the National Association, or the NA. That was a 9-team league that had been organized. This was the beginning of the first pro baseball league in 1871, and there were 9 teams in the league. The Cleveland Forest City finished in 8th place with a record of 10-19. So not that great, but still, we had a team. We had a pro team. The star catcher for the Cleveland Forest City team, Jim White, also known as James Deacon White, got married in April and was late for spring training. His brother Elmer White, the best man, also was late. Opening day for the 1871 Cleveland Forest City team was May 4th in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and against the Fort Wayne Kekiongas. And Cleveland won that game 14-12, so that was good. Good start to the year. And then we moved on to Chicago to play the White Stockings. However, the new baseball park for the White Stockings had been destroyed by the fire of 1871, so they couldn't play. So that meant the two teams, the Cleveland Forest Cities and the Chicago White Stockings, came to Cleveland, and we had our home opener on May 11th. Cleveland Forest Cities against the Chicago White Stockings. And for this season, there were season tickets available, and fans could buy them at a store on the store of Rawson and Pratt on Public Square. And there were two season ticket plans. You could get season tickets for $6 total for the whole year. So that's a pretty good deal. Of course, the value of money was much greater back then than it is now. For $10, you could get season tickets for you, your lady, and your carriage at specified locations behind first base and third base. For the home opener, there were 1,000 fans. Now, the uniforms have been described for the team, the Cleveland Forest City team, were a musical comedy raiment, to quote Franklin Whitey Lewis, the Cleveland sports writer. White shirts with blue trimming, blue hose, and a blue belt, and russet leather shoes, and the monogram Forest Cities on the shirt. Now, one of the problems in 1871, there were no professional umpires. The visiting team would submit a list of 5 names that the home team could select. Now, in this game, James L. Hayne was a Chicago Times sports writer traveling to Cleveland, and he was on the list. And the Chicago captain suggested that Hayne be the umpire for the game, and the Forest Cities naively agreed. Fortunately, Hayne was very biased. And in the 8th inning, the game was tied. There was an 8th inning disturbance, and the game was tied 6-6 after 5 innings. However, after a series of bad calls by the umpire, were very blatantly biased, the Forest Cities were losing in the 8th inning, 18-10, and they walked off the field. We're not going to play anymore because they thought this is ridiculous, this umpiring. And according to the newspaper account, quote, after the Forest Cities had quit the game, everybody swarmed on the field and talked to their heart's content. So there was a riot, fan riot. People were, there's competition, and you have to have a good. There's always controversy anyway with umpires, even if they really are not. They're nonpartisan. Anyway, this was a huge problem in 1871. Partisan umpires. Now, another interesting thing in 1871, the first box score was written in a game or after a game played by Cleveland against Fort Wayne. And if you're a baseball fan, the box score is something that you look at in the newspaper, and it's a mathematical account of one game. It has the lineup, and it has the at-bats, hits, runs, RBIs for each team, home runs, doubles, triples, and for pitchers it has the innings pitched, hits, walks, hits, walks, runs scored, earned runs, and then of course the score of each inning and so forth. Anyway, this apparently the first box score was written by Henry Chadwick, who was a baseball writer, and they call him the father of baseball. He was a sports writer and baseball statistician. He also created the abbreviation K for a strikeout, and Chadwick was elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1938. Very interesting. Now, the Forest Cities joined the National Association for a $10 entry fee. Very interesting. They were playing in a new ballpark in Cleveland on Wilson and Garden Streets, a few blocks away from the first field. Now, in the league, the first place team was the Philadelphia Athletics. They finished the year 21-7, so they were the champions, the baseball champions of 1871. Second place, Chicago White Stockings at 19-9. Third place, Boston Red Stockings at 20-10. Fourth place, the Washington Olympics, 15-15. Fifth place, the New York Mutuals, whose record was 16-17. Sixth place, the Troy, New York Haymakers, who were 13-15. The seventh place team was the Fort Wayne, Indiana Kekiangas, who finished 7-12. Eighth place, the Cleveland Forest Cities, who were 10-19, winning percentage of .345, pretty tough. And in ninth and last place, the Rockford Forest Cities, who were 4-21. So there were two Forest City teams, two teams with the same name. Now, the player manager for the Cleveland Forest City team was Charlie Pabor. Pabor played left field and was the manager, and he was also did a little pitching. His average was .296, 0 home runs, 18 RBIs. As a relief pitcher, he went 0-2 with a 6.75 ERA in 7 games. Pabor is from Brooklyn, New York. He died in New Haven, Connecticut in 1913 at age 66. His career average was .285, 0 home runs, 80 RBIs. Teams he played for included the Union of Morrisania, the Cleveland Forest Cities, Brooklyn Atlantics, Philadelphia White Stockings, and the New Haven Elm Cities from 1865 to 1875. He also was a manager of the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Brooklyn Atlantics, the New Haven Elm Cities, and they called him, his nickname was the Old Woman in the Red Cap. After he retired, he had a long career in the New Haven, Connecticut Police Department. And as manager, he helped launch the career of King Kelly, one of the star players in the late 1800s, Charlie Pabor. Al Pratt was the primary pitcher, and he won all 10 games for the Cleveland Forest Cities in 1871. Pratt was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He died in Pittsburgh in 1937 at age 90. He pitched, and he also played the outfield. His career record as a pitcher was 12-26 with a 4.41 ERA, 41 strikeouts. The teams he played for include the Riverside of Portsmouth, Cleveland Forest Cities in his brief career between 1868 and 1872. He also managed the Pittsburgh Alleghenies. They called him Uncle Al, and he was a Civil War veteran, one of these guys who played during the Civil War and brought it home, helped make baseball the national sport. His 1871 record was 10-17 with a 3.77 ERA in 286 games. And he pitched 224 innings. Pratt was 5'7", 140 pounds. He was buried in his Grand Army of the Republic uniform. That would be the Union soldiers, Grand Army of the Republic. And he led the National Association with 34 strikeouts in 1871. And again, he had all 10 victories for the Cleveland Forest Cities that year. Al Pratt. Deacon White, again, was our catcher, the star catcher who had this tremendous career and is in the Hall of Fame, I believe. Now, the infielders included John Bass, who was the shortstop. Bass led the National Association with 10 triples in 1871. Bass is from Charleston, South Carolina. He died in Denver, Colorado in 1888 at age 40. Died young. Sad. His career average was .290, 3 home runs, 19 RBIs. The teams he played for included the Union of Morrisania, the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Brooklyn Atlantics, the Hanford Dark Blues between 1870 and 1877. He's buried in the Riverside Cemetery in Denver, Colorado. And in 1871, he had a very good year. Hit 303, 3 home runs, 18 RBIs, and he led the National Association with 10 triples. John Bass, our shortstop. Jim Carlton played first base. Carlton's from Clinton, Connecticut. Died in Detroit, Michigan in 1910 at age 61. For his career, he hit .267 with 165 hits, 44 triples. He played for the New York Mutuals and the Cleveland Forest Cities between 1869 and 1871. He also managed the Cleveland Forest Cities, I guess when Charlie Pabor was unavailable. And in 1871, he hit .252, 0 home runs, and 18 RBIs. William Johnson was our second baseman. Johnson's from Parma, Ohio. Very interesting. He was a local guy. He died in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1909 at age 61. His career average was .224, 0 home runs, 7 RBIs, and he just had that 1 year playing for the Cleveland Forest Cities in 1871. They called him Caleb for some reason. William Johnson. Gene Kimball also played second base. He hit .191, 0 home runs, 9 RBIs. Kimball's from Rochester, New York. He died in Rochester at age 31 in 1882. So too bad. Must have gotten sick. He was a slap hitter. He played for the Alert of Rochester and the Cleveland Forest Cities from 1869 to 1871. So this was the end of his professional baseball career. Joe Quest was another player. He hit .231, 0 home runs, 2 RBIs in 3 games. Quest was a second baseman from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. Died in San Diego, California in 1924 at age 71. His career average was .217 with 1 home run, 161 RBIs. He played for the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Indianapolis Blues, the Chicago White Stockings, the Detroit Wolverines, St. Louis Browns, Pittsburgh Alleghenies, and Philadelphia Athletics between 1871 and 1886. So this was the beginning of a fine career. He coined the phrase Charlie horse for when a player would have a sudden leg cramp. His father was a machinist and Joe was an apprentice growing up. And so the story is there was a horse race and during this year, and there was a tip that this Charlie, a horse named Charlie was a sure thing, and the guy said, put your bets on Charlie. And the horse came up lame after a strong start. And this Joe Quest said, look at your Charlie horse now. The next day, a Chicago outfielder, George Gore, pulled up with a leg strain. And, with baseball players, there's a lot of stopping and starting. And then Joe Quest said, there's your Charlie horse. So that's how, supposedly, we got the expression, a Charlie horse, from Joe Quest of the 1871 Cleveland Forest City baseball team. Ezra Sutton was another guy. He played third base and shortstop. Sutton had hit .352, 3 home runs, 23 RBIs. Sutton was a third baseman shortstop from Seneca Falls, New York. He died in Braintree, Massachusetts, home of 2 U.S. presidents, John Adams and John Quincy Adams. And he died in 1907 at age 57. His career average was .294, 25 home runs, 672 RBIs, 1,574 hits. So he had a fine career. He played for the Alert of Rochester, the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Philadelphia Athletics, the Boston Red Caps, and Boston Bean Eaters between 1869 and 1888. With the Boston Bean Eaters in 1877 and 1878, he was on the 2 pennant-winning teams. Ezra Sutton hit the first home run in professional baseball history on May 8th, 1871, for the Cleveland Forest Cities against the Chicago White Stockings. He died in a private hospital in Braintree, Massachusetts. Ezra Sutton. Now, the outfielders included Art Allison, who had a good year, hit .292, 0 home runs, 19 RBIs. Allison, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He died in Washington, D.C. in 1916 at age 67. His career average was .254 with 188 hits, 8 triples. The teams he played for included the Geary of Philadelphia, the Cleveland Forest Cities, the Elizabeth, New Jersey Resolutes, the Washington Nationals, Hartford Dark Blues, and Louisville, Kentucky Grays. And also his full name was Arthur Algernon. They called him Art Allison. Okay, Joe Batten was another outfielder.
He had .0000 home runs, 0 RBIs in one game. He had 3 at-bats. So he just played the one game. Batten's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He died in Akron, Ohio, 1937 at age 84. Batten's career average was .225, 3 home runs, 143 RBIs. He was a second baseman, third baseman, manager for the Cleveland Forest Cities, Philadelphia Athletics, St. Louis Brown Stockings, the Pittsburgh Alleghenies, Chicago Browns, Pittsburgh Stogies, Baltimore Monumentals, and Syracuse Stars. In a 19-year career from 1871 to 1890, he also managed the Pittsburgh Alleghenies, the Chicago Browns, the Pittsburgh Stogies. In the 1936 Hall of Fame ballot, he received 1 vote. And he's buried in the Glendale Cemetery in Akron, Ohio. Joe Batten. George Ewell hit .0000 home runs, 0 RBIs, 1 game, 3 at-bats. Ewell was a right fielder from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Died in Philadelphia in 1910 at age 59, and he's buried at the Mount Moriah Cemetery in Philadelphia. Okay, Elmer White hit .257, 0 home runs, 9 RBIs in 15 games. White was an outfielder catcher from Cato, New York, and he died in Seo, New York in 1872 at age 22. His career average was .257, 18 hits, 70 at-bats. Played for the Cleveland Forest Cities from 1870 to 1871, and that was the extent of his career. He was a right fielder and a backup catcher. And on June 22nd, 1871, he broke his arm running into the outfield fence. He's the first recorded pro baseball to die. He died of tuberculosis shortly before the 1872 season. So it was a real tragedy. So the 1871 Cleveland Forest City baseball team, and God bless all the players who played for the team, and God bless everyone else associated with the 1871 Cleveland Forest City baseball team, including the fans, and especially the Union soldiers from the Civil War. Now, those fellows, had been through so much in the war and sacrificed so much and suffered and lost so many friends. And many of them who made it home lost an arm and a leg. But they had helped keep the United States one country, and they helped end African American slavery. And they developed a great love of baseball during the Civil War, during their travels from place to place. And they brought that love of baseball home. And by 1869, they got to see baseball, the game that they made America's national pastime. They got to see it become the national sport, and enjoyed watching professional games, including the 1871 Cleveland Forest City team. So that was really something. And hopefully in the South, the Confederate veterans, those guys, hopefully as the years passed, they were coming to the realization that it was good that they lost the war, because the United States remained one country, and African-American slavery came to an end. In 1871, Ulysses S. Grant was U.S. president, and he was, the terrible enemy of the South in the war. But by this time, the war was over, and he became the best friend for the South. He had tremendous respect for the Confederate soldiers and officers, and he wanted to heal the wounds of the war. And I don't think he'd be happy today about the removal of Confederate statues, which I believe are not symbols of white supremacy, but simply reminders of respect for the suffering and what the fellows went through in the South, the Confederate soldiers who deserve respect for what they went through. And these are the ancestors of Southerners today. So God bless all of them. Thank you so much for watching. Captains of the Cuyahoga, lovers of Lake Erie, Terminal Tower Power, Tribe Browns and Cavs rule, Cleveland City of Champions. God bless you, take care, and I'll see you next time.